Hello, welcome back. It's me, Charlie. I took a shower and then I went for a walk, and my hair dried like this, so ignore that. This is a series that I've been doing where I am one by one going through my Goodreads TBR, or like an export of my Goodreads want to read shelf, and I'm trying to whittle that list down from this unwieldy list of almost 1,000 books down to something more manageable, something that I can actually use when I need to, or want to look at, my TBR and decide what to read next. So that's the goal. I'm trying to be ruthless. I'm trying to take out all of the nonsense. I have a lot of books, for example, where it's book 2 and book 3 and book 4 of a series, and I haven't even read book 1. So things like that I can easily take off because I don't need book 4 of a series that I haven't started on my want to read shelf. I don't know if I want to read that. I have to read book 1 first. So things like that. I'm trying to be smart about it. I'm also trying to remove a lot of stuff that has just been added based on like the cover looked cool or something like that. There's a lot on this list that you'll see where I mentioned that I have not seen this book before, or like I have no recollection of knowing that this book exists, and so I'll read the description, and if it grips me at that moment, then I'll keep it. But a lot of the time, things like that I'm just going to remove because I don't know what this book is. So You'll see as we go. This is something that I've needed and wanted to do for a very long time, and so having the channel has propelled me to actually do it. So I'm getting a lot out of this, and people seem to be enjoying watching along with me as I whittle down this list. All I ask from you, the viewer, is if you are watching this as we go through the list, if I make a decision that you disagree with, maybe I decide to keep a book on my list that you hated, or if I decide to take a book off that you loved, please let me know. That's been definitely the best part of this series, is that I don't know what I'm doing. So if getting people's feedback on my decisions has been great, super helpful. And at the end, I'm going to try to address all of the feedback that I've gotten in sort of like one video, if there's not like that much, and if that's manageable, and kind of whittle down my list even further, or just correct mistakes that I've made. Similarly, there's a lot of authors who I just don't know where to start. So I'll mention that, I don't know, Stephen King, for example, has been a big one, where there's a lot of Stephen King on my TBR, but I don't know where to start with Stephen King. So if you do know where to start with Stephen King, let me know. Things like that. I would love to hear your feedback on things like that. And generally, what do you think of this video, the format of this video? If you like it, let me know, because when this is done, maybe I'll think of a similar style video that I can make in the future. Because at this point, I think this is the fifth episode of this, and that will bring us to over halfway through the list, which is very exciting because we actually have, I think it's just under 900 books on this list. So somewhere in the middle of today's video, we will be exactly halfway through the list, and by the end we'll be beyond halfway, which is very exciting. If you are here right now and you have not seen any of the other videos in this series, that doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. You don't have to watch these in any specific order. It really, they build on each other a little bit, because sometimes I've mentioned something about an author in a previous video, and I'm not necessarily gonna rehash all of it here, but generally it doesn't matter. And if you make it to the end of this video and you liked it, good news, there's 4 other videos for you already, and I will be making more of these going forward until I finish this list. This series as a whole is just intended to be sort of background noise. It's a video you can put on for around an hour and just kind of listen passively while you do anything else, and that's it. You just spend a little time looking through my TBR and giving me feedback if you have it. Like I said, this is episode 5 of the series, so I'm not going to explain much longer what we're doing here. We're just going to dive right on in, and I will see you back here at the end. All right, so in our last video, in part 4 last month, we left off at The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington, book 1 in the Lycanius trilogy. I removed it because I didn't care for The Will of the Many so much, so I yeah, that's where we landed. After posting that video, a friend of mine did say that they would still recommend this even if I didn't like The Will of the Many. And I will say I didn't dislike that book because of the writing style necessarily. I didn't like the story, I guess. So anyway, I'm going to stop saying that I dislike that book because I know some people love that book and I'm hurting them every time I do it. So, and again, I liked it. I just didn't love it. Anyway, I'm moving on. I am going to make an addendum here. I'm going to change that from a no to a maybe, and then say that it requires a little more research before I can commit. I don't usually update the list as I go, or at least not retroactively. I'm keeping it, going forward. But anyway, I'm going to make that one change, and then I'm going to move on, and I'm going to be hopefully today ruthless and snappy. Those are the two things that I'm going to try to accomplish here. Starting off, we have Michael J. Sullivan, an author who I don't know anything about and I have not read anything by, and we have The Age of Myth, which again is not a book that sounds familiar to me. This, I think, in the spirit of being ruthless, maybe I just remove this. I have no recollection of knowing that this exists. I don't know why I'm scrolling to the reviews. Let's see what it's about. A few stand between humankind and annihilation. Cool. God killer. Cool. Yeah, nope. I don't know. I don't know enough about it, and I am being ruthless. Boom. It's out. Light from Uncommon Stars. Let's see. Oh, okay. I remember the cover being cool, but I don't know about this one. Let's see. Shizuka Satomi made a deal with there's a typo in the in the description. Maybe the devil, or I don't know who, but made a deal. Okay. I mean, I like this queer alien courtship over fresh made donuts. That's fun. Readers also enjoyed some Becky Chambers. Okay, that's promising. I like Becky Chambers. Sure. This can stay. Mostly because of the comp title, and I don't even know how reliable this section really is on Goodreads, but I would love something like A Prayer for the Crown Shy, honestly, and A Psalm for the Wild Built. So, those are good comp titles. There's a lot of like kind of cozy fantasy books here. Not Gideon the Ninth. I don't think that's cozy. Okay, maybe not a lot of. Anyway, I think I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep this one. Yeah, you can stay. Ooh, Empire of Silence. I just read this. I finished this book, so this can be removed because, again, I just read it. I talked about this in my last video. I feel a little bit mixed on it, but I think it was a decent start. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads because you can't do 3.5, and I typically round up on Goodreads because I don't know. I feel like it's a nicer thing to do. I don't know. The book didn't hurt me. Just, it was fine. I wanted a little bit more, but I enjoyed myself while I was reading it. So anyway, it was a good book. And I will be continuing on. So doesn't need to be on my list. I'm taking it off my list. The Maid is a book. This one, I feel like I talked about this at some point elsewhere on the channel. I don't need this on my list. I know a little bit about it, and I'm not 100% sold that it's something that I need. I also know that there's a show, and I think for this one, I wouldn't mind just watching the show. If I need to access this story, I'll just do that. It says I've shelved multiple editions of this book, so that makes me think that I have talked about this already, potentially, but I'm not sure. Either way, I'm going to remove it from my list. R.F. Kuang, we've talked about a couple times, and all I will say here, because again, I've talked about this author in the past, and I've talked about their books in the past, I have decided long ago that I'm going to like R.F. Kuang's books. I don't know why I think that is true, but they're one of very few authors who I'm going to keep all of their books on at least the book ones, because she has some series, or really one series. And I'm just going to keep them all on here because I don't know where I want to start, and each series seems like there's book or series seems individual enough that I could see myself starting with any of them. I don't think Yellowface will be the one where I start, but I'm not ruling it out. So, I'm going to keep that. House of Salt and Sorrows. I think this one will be removed. It's a retelling, which I don't hate. I typically like retellings. Barbie walked so this book could run. I don't have a clue what that means, but I don't know. Maybe that is fun. Okay, it doesn't actually sound bad. It sounds pretty entertaining based on the description. I don't know though. I can't explain it. I just feel like it does sound good, but I don't know. I can't explain it, and I won't explain it. I'm not sold. So it goes. Snow Crash, I will be keeping. I think this is like one of those classic sci-fi books that it feels like I should read it. It was also published very close to my birthday, which is fun for me. But I'm gonna keep this. This might not be true, so I shouldn't even bother to say this, but I feel like it was one of the first like cyberpunk books. And again, that may be false, but I feel like that's true. And I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to stay on the list. Snow Crash is going to stay. Natural History of Dragons is also going to stay. The Memoirs of Lady Trent. I obviously have not read these, but I have seen some reviews on this. In particular, Murphy Napier is a big fan of this series, and they sound great. I think it's like Lady Trent learning and writing about dragons, like she's writing a natural history of dragons or something like that. It sounds really interesting, and like it goes into, I mean, you can kind of tell by the cover. Yeah, I think it's like the study of dragons. It sounds really neat. It sounds unique. Into it, and it stays for sure. The Goblin Emperor. Is this what I'm thinking of? Yeah. Okay. I don't know. This one I've heard such divisive things on, but I'm looking at this. A lot of reviews, 4 stars. I feel like I've heard people say this is like incredibly boring, but I mean, it can't be that bad if it's got this many ratings, this many reviews, and it's at over a 4-star. Christopher Bjornman, who I love, gave it 5 stars. Love that. Maybe it's worth keeping on my list. It's worth keeping on my list. The cover here creeps me out. I don't like it. Whatever. Not important. I'm going to keep it. Never Die. I think Never Die is one of these books that has this really cool, I love this cover. I love books with this sort of typography. I feel like it is a style, and there's like several other books that have a cover in this style, or at least their typography is in this style. And for whatever reason, it always works for me. I can't explain it, but I've also heard pretty good things about this. So this is also going to stay. See, we're getting caught up in terms of like the timeline of when I added books to this TBR, and they're getting more kind of like aligned with my current tastes. So I think it's going to be really hard going forward to be removing things off of this list. Shadow and Claw, the Book of the New Sun 1 and 2. Is this like a bind up almost? The Shadow of the Torturer, The Claw of the Conciliator. Okay, there's a lot of books, I guess. But, okay, yeah, books 1 and 2. And then there's a bind up of like 3 and 4 in Sword and Citadel. Okay, interesting. I definitely don't need. I think I would take this one off, and maybe when I get to the Shadow of the Torturer, maybe that can stay on. But I don't need necessarily the bind up of the first 2 books if I don't know that I even like the first book. So that's good. Once There Were Wolves. This is not one that sounds familiar to me. Charlotte McConaughey. Oh, so is this a... Oh, no, it's fiction. I've read the description. I'm not 100% blown away. I don't know. Not 100% blown away. I do know. I'm going to take it off. Yeah, goodbye. Kings of the Wild. This is going to stay. I just missed out on a buddy read of this not too long ago, and I think people in the buddy read were a little bit hot and cold with it. I've heard it doesn't super land with anybody, and I think that is primarily because of the humor aspect of it. But I do think I tend to enjoy books with humor in them, even though I know humor doesn't land for everybody. Specific types of humor are for specific people, obviously. So that is true. But a friend of mine who I think has the same sense of humor as me has read this and the sequel, I believe, and thought it was great. And so, yeah, definitely one that I want to read. It's also already on my shelf upstairs, so this can absolutely stay. Okay, we're in a chunk now of there's 4 books here, 4 Robin Hobb books: Fool's Assassin, The Dragon Keeper, Fool's Errand, and The Assassin's Apprentice. Now, that's strange that I did this. It looks like I added book 1 of like all of the kind of series within the overarching Realm of the Elderlings series, I guess, or at least 4 of them. I'm not sure how many there actually are. Assassin's Apprentice is book 1 of the whole series, sort of, and I have it on my shelf upstairs, and this is where I'm going to start. And so while I do think that I will be enjoying Robin Hobb's work, I absolutely don't need more than just 1 book on my TBR right now, because again, this is where I'm going to start. And if I like it, I'll go to the next book, but I don't need all that. So it's off. Game of Thrones should stay here. I want to read A Song of Ice and Fire. I know it's probably never going to be finished. I feel like we'll get at least 1 more book at some point, but I think it's supposed to have like 2 more books to like actually complete it. I think that's true. But yeah, I do want to read this. I do own the series as a whole, and I see that I only have the first book on my TBR, which is fantastic. So that's great. I'm going to keep that. Conqueror's Blood. I've talked about Zamil Akhtar on the channel a few times. I don't need book 2 of a series on here. I have only read the like prequel novella to this series, and I loved it. So I do want to pick up Gunmetal Gods, but I don't need Conqueror's Blood on my TBR. One Punch Man 14. That's so random that this is on my list. I have read 29 volumes of One Punch Man. So, just double checking. 29 are on my shelf right next to me. So I don't need volume 14 on my TBR. That is very random. Wolfsong and Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. These are interesting because if I was looking at these a month ago in our last video, I don't know what I would have done, but now I probably would have just taken them off. But now I've read a TJ Klune book since then. It was the first book I finished this month. It took me like 3 days. It was great. And I do now want more TJ Klune, but I don't know necessarily where to go from here. But I think my next TJ Klune is just going to be... So I read The House in the Cerulean Sea, and the second book in that series is Somewhere Beyond the Sea. And I think that's just going to be my next TJ Klune book. And from there, I'll decide what I want to read next. I think it probably will be Under the Whispering Door, but if that's the case, I'll just add it back to my TBR. So yeah, I'm just going to remove both of those. Although at this moment, I do feel like at some point I'll work my way through all of TJ Klune's books, just based on that one book that I read so far that I really, really liked it. The Way of Shadows by Brent Weeks. Brent Weeks is an author that I know of, just by name, and I know Night Angel has sounded good to me in the past, and so I will be keeping this on the list. I think so. I read the description here, and I read some reviews. One review said it was so bad that they thought it was satire. That is obviously an unpopular opinion. I'm gonna keep it on my list. I do think it sounds good to me. I have very briefly touched on the fact that I'm not gonna keep Neil Gaiman on my list. So moving right along, I'm taking that off. Arm of the Sphinx by Josiah Bancroft. Absolutely gonna stay. I'll pull it up. I read book 1 in this series, Senless Sens, and I had a really good time with that. I thought it was great, so I'm definitely going to keep this. I'm hoping to get to this book, honestly, very soon. I think about it often whenever I'm looking at my shelves, and for whatever reason, I never pick it up off the shelf, but this, I want to get to this ASAP. I really liked the first book. It's cool, because the first book, this is not always the case, especially for me, because my brain is, small and smooth. And so usually when I read a book, it just kind of slips out of my memory and then it's gone forever. But I feel like I remember a lot of book 1, which I think says a lot about how much I liked it. So that should be the minimum bar, I guess, for books, for most people. But for me, that's like really high praise. I could probably comfortably walk someone through like a synopsis of the story, or like a summary of all of the events that happen in that book. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, anyway, that doesn't matter. That's not actually impressive, but it does mean I want to pick this up. Vagabond Volume 1. I do think this is going to stay. I do want to read Vagabond. It's one of those complicated, so this is Vagabond Volume 1, but it's like the omnibus edition. I don't know that I need to keep the omnibus. It contains volumes 1 through 3. Really, I just need volume 1 on here, if I'm being... Well, this is fine. Maybe this is fine. I think I'm going to like this one. So, anyway, I'm going to keep that one. Yeah, I'll keep it as is. The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. I've heard very good things about this. The Darkwater Legacy. I'm not actually sure how long this series is. It's just 2? Okay, just 2, at least so far. I don't know if it's ongoing. But anyway, this I know is something that sounds right up my alley. I didn't realize how chunky it was. That's a pretty substantial book. But yeah, I've heard really good things. So I will be keeping this on my list. Ender's Shadow by Orson Scott Card. I'm going to remove Ender's Shadow. I've never read any Ender's Game, I believe. Okay, so it's a parallel novel. So it sounds like you don't necessarily need to read like Ender's Game or Ender's Shadow first. That's my assumption based off of this. But I'm going to remove it just because I think I would just start with the one that I have on my shelf. I'm going to remove it from my list. I don't know when I'll get to reading Ender's Game. Even honestly, I don't. It's definitely not on my short list. I have it because I got it from like a free little library at some point, I believe. So, it's on my shelf. Maybe I'll get to it eventually, but I'm in no rush. The Bone Ships. This is going to stay. I have heard really cool things about this. The concept of the world is really cool. It's like dragons are gone, right? But I think also their bones have been used to create ships They also might be sentient ships, but maybe that's the live ship traders. That's different. That's different. But yeah, I've heard really good things about this. Yeah, I'm gonna keep this. It sounds like a cool world, like a post-dragon world. Could be interesting. Illborn, again, this is gonna be a book that I keep on my list. I couldn't tell you really much about this, but I do know that it is something that I want to read. 4 young men and women begin to develop supernatural abilities. Yeah, I'm into it. Yeah, it's gonna stay. It just is. It's gonna stay. I'm keeping it. Gideon the Ninth, another one that I'm gonna keep. It just sounds good. I know I've heard a lot of really good things about it. I think I've also heard with this series that you kind of go into it knowing that you're going to be confused a lot, and you just are confused, or like you don't know everything that you're reading as you read it, but that's like part of the charm somehow. And I'm curious about what that means. Is it frustrating, or is it satisfying enough at the end? Once you finish it, do you feel like, okay, it was worth the being confused or not? So yeah, anyway, that one you're gonna stay for sure. Digital minimalism, choosing a focused life in a noisy world. Honestly, I should read it. I should do this. I should choose a focused life in a noisy world. But honestly, I'm just not. I am in a noisy world, and I'm living a noisy life right now. So it's just not the time for you, my friend. Superpowers, year 1. What? Okay. I don't really know what this is. I love superpowers. I love superheroes. I love this kind of thing. It looks like it's set in like an academy or like a college, and I don't really care for that sort of setting. I'm learning about myself. It's a very big book, and I honestly, I just don't think I'm interested. It's well reviewed. People like this, but yeah, no, I don't think it's for me, which is weird. It feels weird to say because again, I'm a big superhero guy. But yeah, no, it's gonna go. The Severing Storm doesn't sound familiar. The author doesn't sound familiar. I read the description. I'm not sure where I heard about this book. It seems like it's a pretty small, or not a small book, but it only has 87 ratings. It only has 29 reviews, which doesn't say anything. It's just I'm just interested in how did I hear about this in the first place? But I'm gonna remove it from my list. It's not jumping out at me as anything that I need to pick up. So it goes. The Umbral Storm, again, not something that sounds familiar to me. Cool cover. I know it doesn't matter, but it is a cool cover. It does matter. So let's see. Honestly, this does sound good. 1,000 years ago, the heart of the world was shattered, its fragments scattered across the lands. I read the whole description here, and yeah, it does sound cool to me. So I'm gonna keep that one. I didn't expect that because I feel like I don't remember that book in my brain. But yeah, it's gonna stay. The Purple Prince, another one where I have no idea what this is, but let's see what it's about. Okay, again, it sounds good. I think I'll keep it. Yeah, it sounds cool. I don't know. The lives of 4 extraordinary people. We got Mila, a loyal follower of the gods, son of an emperor, a master assassin, and heir to Earth's End. I don't know what that is, but I don't know. I don't know why. It sounds cool. People are into it. Also, you stay. Going with my gut here. Okay, we have 2 in a row by Annalee Newitz. Not an author. That sounds familiar, but okay. The Terraformers and Autonomous. Okay, the cover I remember. Honestly, I feel like I haven't actually heard a ton about these books. Yeah, and I think they're just gonna go. They're just gonna go. Honestly, I feel like I haven't heard a ton of great things about them. I guess I've heard a decent amount. I think of middling things, and uh, I just don't necessarily need them on my list. Maybe at some point they'll make their way back to the list, but as of right now, I don't think so. Ascension, not the Well of Ascension. Ascension by Nicholas Binge. I don't know. I'm gonna take it off. I'm gonna take it off my list. Yeah, I don't know. Doesn't necessarily do it for me. There's a lot of sci-fi that I want to get to, and I don't think this needs to be anywhere early on my list. Maybe at some point I'll get to it. It's a big name. I've heard this book exists, but yeah, I don't know. Doesn't do it for me. The next up is In the Lives of Puppets, which again is a TJ Klune book, which I've already talked about earlier in this video. It's just not where I'm going to go next, although again, I do think that I will go through their entire catalog at some point. The next, I'm not even going to pull up, it's Hellbent, which is book 2 in a series, and I have book 1 upstairs. What is it, Ninth House or something like that, by Leigh Bardugo. If I was going to pick that up, I would start there. So yeah, that's going to come off really easy. Counterweight by Juna, is that how you pronounce that? Ooh. Okay, I am going to take this off my list. This was recommended to me by the owner of a bookstore, a local bookstore, like 15 minutes from my house. It's a really great bookstore. It's a South Korean novel, but I know that he told me about it, and I think I remember not really thinking that it was gonna be my taste, but I was right in front of him, so I added it to my TBR. But it sounds cool, but not. I don't know. It's not my speed for whatever reason. So I'm not saying that I think it's a bad book, but I don't think that I would enjoy it. So I am gonna remove that one. Born by Jeff Vandermeer. This falls in a similar category to TJ Klune in my mind right now. I've read a little bit of Jeff Vandermeer. I read what was it? What is it? Ascension? No, Annihilation. Annihilation. That's the one. I read Annihilation and I liked it. Born is not where I'm going to go next, though. I'm going to read, what was it, Authority or something like that. Acceptance, one of those. Book 2 in the Area X series. And there's a fourth book that just came out recently, so it's not a trilogy anymore. Anyway, I liked the first Jeff Vandermeer book that I read, but yeah, I don't necessarily need all of his books on my TBR, so this one's going to go. Spear. I think I remember what this book is. Girl knows she has a destiny even before she knows her name. Yeah, this one. This can stay. This sounds really cool to me. And it's a novella, and I love a good novella. This would be great for when I'm looking for something short to pick up. So definitely that one is going to stay. Children of Gods and Fighting Men, I've heard very good things about. So I'm just going to keep this. Although I do see my friend Mair of Lady Mair Reads, who you should check out their channel. They're great. They're very, they have very strong opinions, and they're not afraid to tell you them. They're great. And okay, she was pretty middling. It's if I was to describe this story, it would be meh, a meh kind of story. Okay, Mair, I hear you. I'm not looking for meh right now. So goodbye. A Little Hatred, Age of Madness by Joe Abercrombie. I do want to read A Little Hatred, but I do not believe that this is where I'm going to start with Joe Abercrombie. Yeah, I'm going to start with The Blade itself. So I'm going to remove this, but it's not because I'm a bad person. It's because it's not my chosen starting point. The Priory of the Orange Tree. This is that massive book, right? Yeah, this is like 4 million pages long, I think. Okay, 845 pages. Something about the physical books, they look huge. So that's irrelevant. That doesn't matter. I've read larger books than that. But I have heard I mean, I'm seeing the rating right now. It's a 4.18. That's very high. But I have heard from a lot of people who I trust on the internet that it does not quite earn its page count. Although I see my friend Rae, who Rae Loves to Read, is their YouTube channel. They're also great. You should also check out their channel. Yeah, I mean, they loved it. They rated it with their heart, which is great. I think that's typically how I rate things as well. I don't know. Honestly, I just don't see myself picking it up. That's a very strong 5-star rating, but no, I'm gonna take it off. And I'm just gonna go ahead and remove the other one as well. I just don't think it's a series that I care to get into right now. So yeah, it's off. Gender Queer is another book that is on my list. I almost feel like, is this a graphic novel? It is a graphic novel. I think this one should stay on my list. It's a memoir, a graphic novel memoir. And I've heard good things. It looks great. It seems like an important read, and it's a nonfiction graphic novel. I don't know. It sounds like something that I'm into. That I think I would benefit from reading. That's what it seems like to me. Like it's a helpful book for advocates and friends of queer individuals, and so I would like to be more of that. And so yeah, this is going to stay on my list. Crossroads, another one that's going to stay on my list. I have this on my shelf upstairs. Not Crossroads of Twilight. Not this. The one by Laurel Hightower. Oh, I am thinking of a totally different book. Not this at all. I was very wrong. It is a very short book. A novella, a horror novella. I don't think this is for me right now. I don't think it's necessarily the time for me to pick this book up. I'm gonna take that one off. Black Sun, I am going to keep. I saw some review. I don't remember who it was, but a fairly favorable review on it, and it just sounded really good to me. And I've been in stores several times, and I've almost picked it up several times. And one of these days, it's gonna win, and because it looks really good. The concept is really cool. Right here, it says, "A god will return when the earth and sky converge under the black sun." That sounds neat. Yeah, this is gonna stay. I have a distinct memory of being in a store, and I was holding the Black Sun and the Black Tongue Thief, and I was between the two of them, and I picked up the Black Tongue Thief, and I'm glad that I did. But I do want to make my way back to this one. I think it sounds really good. 11th Cycle is another one that is absolutely going to stay on my list. This is another pretty large book, I believe. Yeah, like almost 800 pages, but I've heard it's like very Dark Souls. So I love that. So I'm gonna keep this on here for sure. It's like a grim, dark book with these crazy monsters, I believe. And yeah, dark fantasy. I'm into it. I'm gonna keep it. This stays on my list. I don't know when I'm gonna get to it, but it sounds really good to me. The Water Dancer. I maybe we'll get to this at some point. I'm gonna take it off my list though, because I know of this book. It's another one that I do own. It is upstairs on my shelf, and I think for that reason I'm going to take it off, because I don't know. I don't need it twice. Not twice. I don't need a reminder like on the internet that this book exists, because I have the physical reminder upstairs, and I don't know that I feel like entirely drawn to it. But if I do one day want to pick it up, I always can. So this is going to go off. Finding Me by Viola Davis. I think Viola Davis is cool, but I don't necessarily feel like I need to pick this up. Maybe I will one day, but doesn't need to be on my list. Didn't we already talk about Yellowface by Rebecca Kwong? R.F. Kwong, sorry. I think she's starting to go by Rebecca Kwong, but that is not for me to decide. Do I have this twice or something? What did I do? I don't know what I did wrong, but I thought we already talked about Yellowface. I'm pretty sure we did. We did. It's right there, and we left it on. I'm going to take this one off or leave it on. I'm just going to leave it on. I shouldn't have it twice. I'm going to remove the row. Sure. I don't know. It just doesn't need to be on here twice. True Biz I've also talked about before, haven't I? I'm losing my mind. I did. I left it on. It's on here twice. I didn't talk about this one today. I talked about it last week, I think. Or not week, last month. Yeah, I did. It does. Why are you here twice? I'm removing it. I just don't need it on my list twice. I do want to read that one also. Okay, those are gone. True Biz also is... Didn't I talk about this last month? I did. It's right here. I talked about that in our last video. I do want to read this book, but I don't need it on my list twice. So I'm going to remove the whole line. That's fine. Romaine wasn't built in a day. What? This is a book about food? I remember the cover of this. I'm going to take this out. I don't need this on my list. That's very funny though, but I don't need that. Leigh Bardugo. I do think that I will be starting with Ninth House, not King of Scars, if I do pick up any Leigh Bardugo. So I'm going to remove this. Could be good. I don't know. I'll know when I get to it. The Helm of Midnight. A legendary serial killer stalks the streets of a fantastical city in the Helm of Midnight. Stunning first novel. I'm not 100% sold. I'm going to remove it. Up next, we do have Ninth House, which now I've mentioned a few times here. This is going to stay on my list because I do think that when I read Leigh Bardugo, I think I want to start with Ninth House. Again, as always, correct me if I'm wrong on that, if that's the wrong choice, but this is going to stay. I'm going to, without pulling it up, remove Rule of Wolves. It's book 2 in a different series by the same author. I don't need that here. Foundry Side is a book by Robert Jackson Bennett. Robert Jackson Bennett being the author of The Tainted Cup, which I loved. However, I'm currently sort of reading, I'm hoping to read this month. I started it. I'm only a few chapters in. I'm reading book 2 of, A Drop of Corruption in the same series as The Tainted Cup. Maybe if I like that, then I'll add this back to my list. I think that seems fair, but right now I don't necessarily need that. But I again, really, really am liking The Tainted Cup and that series so far. So yeah, I'll probably put this back on my list at some point, but for now it's off. The Nikopol Trilogy. This is a graphic novel, sci-fi graphic novel. This is like a bind up of 3 graphic novels. I'm not 100% on this one. I don't remember where I heard about this, but it's not super grabbing me right this second. So we remove it. The Shadow of the Torturer. Gene Wolfe. No. It's not doing anything for me. I'm out. Goodbye. You're out. I'm staying here. The Once and Future King. Sounds familiar. Oh, this is like King Arthur, right? Yeah, it's Arthurian legends. Sure. Okay, this can stay. I think eventually that would be good to get to. Fahrenheit 451. This is Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury does feel like an author that I would like to get to at some point. I'm not sure where I would start with Ray Bradbury though, but I'm not sure. I'm gonna question mark this one. I think my brother read a couple Ray Bradbury books. I think he's enjoyed them. Maybe I'll ask him where he thinks I should start. Fonda Lee, The Jade Setter of Janloon. Greenbone Saga, I'm assuming like a prequel novella, probably. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember this coming out. I do think it's a novella. I kind of feel like I remember hearing that you... Oh, wow. Best novella you've ever read in your life. Wow. High praise. Okay, I mean, this is definitely something that I want to read. I don't know if I need to read it before... You can't have to read it before you read the Greenbone Saga because it came out recently. I feel like this is the most recent addition to that series, so you can't need to read it first. I'm gonna take it off. I think I'm just gonna commit to reading like the series before, or, without this. I don't think you need it. So yeah, I'll put it off. I'll put it off for now. Of Blood and Fire, The Bound and the Broken, Book 1, Ryan Cahill. I have heard really, really good things. I think I've heard that this first book is good, but that it just gets better and better from there. I will be keeping this on my list. Yeah, that's it. I just will. Untethered Sky is another Fonda Lee. I just don't think this is where I'll start. I think I've heard that this is good, but it's not part of the Greenbone saga, and it's not where I would begin with her writing. So that's gonna go away. A Prelude to Ashes. That's a really cool title. I don't remember ever seeing that in my whole life. No, I'm gonna remove it. It's not doing anything for me. It's gonna go. The Willful Princess and the Piebald Prince, by Robin Hobb. I can remove this. I don't know what this is. Yeah, I don't know. It looks like it's, interesting. Realm of the Elderlings 0.5. Huh. Am I supposed to start here? I'll have to ask my friends about this. Yeah, I'm going to question mark this one. This is not where I was intending to start with Robin Hobb, but I'm going to have to ask around to see if that's something that I should do. Hellmouth, I believe, will stay, if this is what I'm thinking of. Yeah, okay. This is a short story, but I've heard it's very good. It's like a horror short story. I think, like, technically it's maybe a novella, because I think some people consider short stories like anything up to 50 pages, and it's 52 pages. So, whatever. I don't care how that's defined, but it's gonna stay. I've heard very good things, so you can stay. A Study in Brimstone. Warlock Holmes. Oh yeah. This is pretty much on here because I thought Warlock Holmes was really funny. It's like Sherlock Holmes, but the opposite, and he's a wizard. Warlock Holmes is an idiot. So it's the antithesis of Sherlock Holmes, but also he's a wizard. It's probably really fun, like a really fun read. But yeah, I don't actually need this. I don't know that I'll actually ever pick it up. Maybe someday, but I don't need that. Empire of the Vampire, divisive book in my circles, but I do think that I would pick this up eventually. Some people absolutely love it, and people that I'm thinking of that I know love this book, I typically have similar tastes in books with those people. So it's gonna stay. It's gonna stay. Astrophysics for people in a hurry. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse Tyson is somebody who, like, I wish that I would give this time, but I know myself, and I'm not going to pick this book up. So it's gonna go away. He's a cool guy. He's very smart. I should listen to him talk. I should read his writing. I just won't. So it's off. Wolfsong, again, I've already talked about Wolfsong on this list, I'm pretty sure. So, I'll double check. Okay, Wolfsong looks like it's on here 3 times. I'm going to just remove this one from here, and I'm going to go to the next one, and I'm going to remove this as well, so we don't have to deal with this in a few videos. Right, The Lost War. I don't know who. Oh, yes. Okay, Justin Lee Anderson. This is going to stay for sure. I think, was it Mair? I think, yeah, absolutely loved this. Went on a tear. I think she read the whole series. It might be a trilogy. Okay, there's going to be more even. That's great. Yeah, Mair, again, Lady Mair Reads, loved this series. It sounds really good. From her talking about it, I'm very much sold on this. This is totally gonna stay on my list for sure. Now I have 2 Mark Lawrence books, Prince of Thorns and The Book That Wouldn't Burn. I think out of those 2, I would keep The Book That Wouldn't Burn, although I do have friends who have read that series that did not like it, and I do feel, again, very closely aligned with their tastes. So I'm actually going to just remove both of Mark Lawrence's books that, I have 2 in a row here on my list. They're both gone. I'm taking them both off, and I feel fine about that. Exile is a book, sci-fi space opera. Honestly, the description doesn't super do it for me. I'm going to remove this. It sounds like people love this book, but yeah, it's just not selling me on itself. So that's gone. Combat codes, I am very sold on. I think it's like, instead of wars, it's like as if the world just decides, like, we have a disagreement. Instead of big all-out wars, we're going to give you this guy, you give us this person, and they're going to fight, and that's how we'll decide who wins this, like, what would be a war, which is interesting. Yeah, the fate of empires decided by battle-hardened warriors. Totally into it. I've heard it's really good. That's going to stay. Sealed Empire does not sound familiar, yet again. The author doesn't sound familiar. The title doesn't look familiar, but the title does look insane. What is that? It's like a sea monster and a ship, but the sea monster is a robot. What sci-fantasy book? I do think I like the idea of, like, it says like ancient history or ancient beasts, but like the ancient beasts are robotic potentially. They roar with metallic screech. Yeah. Okay, I'm in. That sounds super cool. I sure, absolutely. What? Yeah. Okay. Sisters, brothers. Okay, again, this is like in book or in like the first video. I think I took this off of my list. I'm going to double check. It was the 12th book that I talked about in this thing, and I took it off then. So I'm going to take it off now as well. Hollow Kingdom is going to stay. I recently finally picked this up. It sounds very funny, very bizarre. It's like a post-apocalyptic, I think zombies also, and the main character is a crow, but like a pet crow, like a domesticated crow. It says, yeah, like somebody's Big Jim has this like rude bird that he owns, and then he dies and turns into a zombie or something, and then the bird gets out, and we follow the bird's point of view. It's supposed to be funny and ridiculous, and I think Murphy Napier hated it, but I think it looks really good. I think it sounds very funny, very ridiculous, and again, I did buy it not too long ago, with the intention to read it. So I'm going to keep that. Fantastic Land, I'm going to remove. I have a lot of horror that I want to get to before I consider picking this up. So that's going to go away. Migrations, I think I just took off a different book by this same author, Charlotte McConaughey, in this very same video. I did, yeah. Was it the Wolves one? Yeah, I'm going to remove this one. It just doesn't sound super interesting to me. So it's out. IQ84 is a Haruki Murakami book, and I should read some of their stuff. I don't really know if I would start here or Kafka on the Shore. Part of me thinks I would start with Kafka on the Shore, but I'm going to throw in a question mark for this one. Combat codes, again, I literally just talked about this. I am keeping it on my list, but I am removing this line. I don't know why this happens. Again, this list that I have here that I'm working off of is an export from Goodreads. So all of the errors on it, I would very comfortably blame Goodreads for them. In terms of, duplicates, I don't think I did that. So that feels very much not my fault. The Flames of Mira, yeah, it's also going to stay. Book 2 came out, I think, last year. And I've heard really good things. I've heard yeah, I've heard really good things about this book specifically. I know a buddy of mine also read book 2 when that came out and loved that as well. So I will absolutely be keeping this on the list. Mark Lawrence, again, goodbye. I already took you off. Voice of War, Threadlight, book 1, gonna stay here. This is written by Zach Argyle, who is married to Bookborn, who is a fantastic booktuber. So yeah, she stands right there in all her videos. This looks really great. I've heard good things. It has this insane special edition that he's holding in his picture here. It's like the coolest looking special edition that I've ever seen in my entire life. I will not be reading that copy of it when I eventually pick this up, but the book, it sounds really good. The series as a whole sounds really good. The Passage by Justin Cronin. Again, I do feel like I've talked about this before in this series. Okay, I'm wrong. Although, I'm not wrong. I've already taken it out. So, big heavy sigh. I take it out again. Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I've heard. I don't think this sounds like it's for me. I just don't. Yeah, I just don't. I don't think this is something that I would like for whatever reason. So I am going to remove it. I'm happy to be wrong about that. I've heard a lot of good things about Naomi Novik in general, but for some reason their books just don't seem like they would be my speed. Like A Deadly Education is another, like I think that's a series. Yeah, the Scholomance. It just, for whatever reason, I feel like people love it. I don't really think that I will be one of those people. We are almost at the end here of today's video. The 10,000 Doors of January, YA historical fiction. Honestly, the description doesn't do it for me. I'm going to keep being brutal here. I'm doing great today. That's going to go. Exhalation is going to stay here. This is a short story collection by Ted Chiang, and yeah, no, it's going to stay. I've heard really good things. My wife actually, I think she read it. She's been recommending it to me recently. We own it. We've lent it out to one of our friends. If that's you, let me know when you're done. I want to pick it up. I am going to remove the other Ted Chiang I have here because I want to start with Exhalation. The Paper Menagerie and Other Stories. I'm currently reading this. So what do? I'm going to just write currently reading. Great. That can stay like that because I'm reading it. I'm liking it a lot. I'm actually doing a book club for that. So if you want to join the Fables or in that book club, I'll leave the link in the description below. Red Shirts by John Scalzi. I do want to read more John Scalzi, so this is going to stay. I have read only one of his books so far, the Kaiju Preservation Society, but I really liked it. And Red Shirts, I think, is his like love letter to Star Trek, and Star Trek is super cool. So yeah, I'm going to keep this on my list. Between Two Fires shouldn't be on here. I've read Between Two Fires. I loved Between Two Fires. So I'm going to remove that only because I read it. I loved it. I don't need to read it again. Or, well, I mean, maybe I'll read it again at some point, but I don't need it on my TBR. So that can go. Okay. Our final book of the day is Ursula K. Le Guin, The Lathe of Heaven. I do want to read some Ursula K. Le Guin. I do not know where to start, so I'm going to remove that. But I've heard only incredible things about Ursula K. Le Guin. So that's it. That's where I'm going to go with that. Question mark, because I don't know where to start with their work. I have a few friends, specifically Ross Hardy of Hardy's Books. I'm coming for you. I'm going to ask you where I should begin with Ursula K. Le Guin's works. And that brings us to 500. We're done for the day. All right, we did it. That was great, actually. I at some point in the middle there, I thought this was going to be a really weak week, and that's poorly said. I thought it was going to be, not a great week in terms of cutting down this list. But we went through 100 books, and we're only left with 41. out of that 100. So that was actually really good. We cut out a lot of fluff there. There were a few things that we left question marks, so I'm including those in the 41 that we have left over. But we cut out a lot. That was really good. I've said it before, but this list is in order of by date added to my TBR. So the oldest ones are the ones furthest removed from my current reading tastes. So as we progress through the list, this is going to get harder and harder. And I'm already seeing that be the case. There's a lot of books that are added because I will like them. They've been added fairly recently, at least in the last couple of years. And I do suspect that will continue being harder and harder as we go. But again, today we did great. As always, if there's anything in today's video that you watched me remove that you love, let me know and I can consider putting it back on. Similarly, if there's anything that I kept on my list that you hated, let me know and I can consider taking it off my list. I really appreciate all the feedback that I get on things like that in these videos. It's been super helpful going through this experiment with you. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And if these are the only videos of mine that you watch, I will see you back here in a month. And otherwise, thank you again for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.